because I know what these people are capable of. They're capable of pure murder. Minnesota is so corrupted and is so deep rooted in everybody's at each other. And we watch and cover up many other murders and activists who have ran with the police narrative, know nothing about me or my son's father, and have ran with the police narrative of what happened to my son's father. And that's the saddest thing in the world when you're supposed to be an activist standing up for what's right.
You know, I want to speak on that, Tashira, because, you know, when Alpha News, and I will say the outlet Alpha News. I don't know if you did or not, but Alpha News came out with that narrative, the police narrative, and we do have video from Unicorn Riot that we are going to play, and I want you to describe in the video of, because there's some things for me that not rendering because honestly, when you look in that video, they didn't even really look for Justin. If you can see in the video, and then around the soup, you got the video set up.
Yeah, I can pull it up on. I can go ahead and pull it up on YouTube right now. Actually, so it's a Unicorn Riot, and I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pull it up for you guys. Yep, 10 years. Justin Teagan matters 10 years later. Are you okay with us playing that?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and play that, and then just let me know if you guys want me to pause it or if there's any time that you want me to stop the video for you guys.
After they murder your loved ones, then they come and follow you, harass you when you are the victim. We're only doing what any other human being would do naturally, is try to find out the truth of what happened to your loved one. That's a natural reaction.
Unfortunately, we're all standing here together, but God chose us for some reason. We don't know why, but He knew it was something inside of us that we were strong enough.
My name is Tashira Garraway, and I am the fiance Justin Teagan. In 2009, Justin was pulled over by the St. Paul police. And during that, we got so many different stories, but at the end of the story, Justin ends up dead. He was beat, murdered, thrown in a trash can, and found out in Evergrove Heights by the St. Paul Police Department. He ran from the police. They beat him, picked his body up, threw him over in the dumpster. They thought they threw him in the regular garbage, but they had thrown him in a recycling bin. And of course, that gets sorted through. So he ended up out in Evergrove Heights, and he comes through on a flatbed with the rest of the recycling material. So I have pictures of Justin's body just dangling from the Bobcat with blood just pouring out from his head. And so he's laying in his casket where you can see the handcuffs marks on him. You can, when I went to look at his body, he has dog bites all over him. There's a video from Walmart that shows the police. It shows Justin run. It shows the police right where the area where Justin ran. And then the video goes blank. So it's clear that the video has been tampered with. But the video clearly shows that the police was right there in Justin's presence, although they told us they never chased him. Once we hired an attorney, the harassment started. They would sit outside my home where my 3-year-old would just be playing. They'd sit there and watch my kid. That scared me bad. They would sit outside his mother's home where her kids would be playing. Just doing things to keep us quiet, you know, and that's the main thing for them. They want to keep us quiet. And since 2009, I have been quiet, and I'm tired of suffering in silence. When I seen other mothers coming out, that's when I felt safe enough, because for a long time I did not feel safe. I felt that my life was threatened as well, and that they just did everything they could to keep me quiet. You know, I've had family members that's like, just let it go. But that's the problem. We've just been letting it go. There's so many mothers out there suffering because they've just been letting it go. And it's time for us to stop just letting it go, and time for us to try to say something. We have to tell our stories. Otherwise, it's like it never happened. And we got to let people know that it's more than Philando Castile. It's more than Jamar Clark. Only by the grace of God that girl was there to record Philando Castile. Otherwise, it'll be the same situation like the rest of us. Swept under the rug, and everybody just moves on like nothing happened. But that's what they want to happen. That's why they harass us. That's why they follow us. They do everything so that our stories don't get out. But it's time for our stories to get out. It's time for us to get heard. And it's time for something to happen. It's time for people to hear us most of all.
I love Unicorn Riot. Okay. So did you guys want to talk about that video? You did an amazing job speaking, by the way. You're always like such an amazing speaker. Just want to point that out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, my thing is what I've had to live through and what Justin's mother and my son has had to live through for like 12 years now, to watch these people cover up a murder the way that they did, dismantled mine, and for me to know what happened to Justice. Because his mother lost 2 more kids after Justin. And I don't blame her for no longer having the strength to be out here fighting. Came to the point that if I didn't, his sister used to cry about the police killing her brother all the time after they used to sit outside the house and everything. And she took some pills and she never woke up, and then the brother did the same thing. And I realized that if I didn't fight for him, nobody else would. And I couldn't bear the thought of that. I know what they did to me. I know what they did to my family. They would roll their windows down and they would wave at me. We couldn't even have a funeral in peace because they were swarming all around the church where we were trying to have a funeral to mourn his death. I know what I went in that mortuary and seen his skull cracked in half, dog bites on his body. And most of all, I know that they know what they did. So they can cover it up and they can do whatever they want to do. But they can't get away from the wrath of God because he was there when Justin's life was taken. They beat him up. They beat his ass. And I will never change my story. I will never back down from, because it's my story now. Justin's gone. But I had to live through it. And it hurt me so bad to know that the people that was supposed to be fighting with me, that the people that was supposed to be standing up with me and other families would take and run with the people narrative that we know they cover up murders. You might as well go work down at the police department. My son's father's sister called me crying on the phone and said, who are these people that are running with the police narrative? They know nothing about my brother. Because our family know what we lived through. And it's a pain that is indescribable. These people are inhumane. And they have covered up 472 murders at the hands of law enforcement since the year 2000. Almost 500 bodies of Black, Indigenous, and minority people here in the state of Minnesota alone. We are out here suffering. Here I am putting my life on the line, fighting for not only Justin's life, but for other lives as well, because our families didn't deserve this. So I will continue to fight. I will continue to tell Justin's truth. I will continue to help bring forth the truth for other families. And you either rolling with me or you're going to get ran over, because I'm going to continue to tell Justin's truth, because I'm all he has to tell his truth. Because of his mom losing the rest of, she was fighting at first, but you should have seen how his mother was treated when she was trying to get answers. To this day, they've never let us see an unedited, clean version of what happened to Justin.
And that's what I wanted to ask. And that's what I wanted to ask you, because of seeing the video, and you're seeing the police after, you know, Justin crashes, you see him run, but you also see the police look for him. And the point that I'm making out is there's a lot of things that I see. They had K9, and that was a lot of like rendering aid. I feel like there was a lot of things that were, could something have gone? Do you feel like with everything, trying to, let's talk about the legislation that Justin's law. Let's talk about that, because I know that has to do with a lot that, so that families can get justice. I really want to talk about that, because I know that is something that is big, and I feel like with today's times that where we're at with technology and everything, there's more that people can do to get justice. And I think like with what is that? Murder, there isn't no statute of limitations. So I think like with the same thing with murder, it should be the same thing with police murders, because of the same fact, like they don't give us, we got to go extra harder to get information, to get videos, like literally, like you have to have Twitter detectives, you got to have thousands, you know, sometimes hundreds and thousands of people to get justice for some of these families, for some of these. So I really want to talk about Justin's law and some of the laws that you have pushed behind in Minnesota, so that families can get justice, because I definitely believe that is something that is needed everywhere, especially with ending qualified immunity. And I love the fact that you're behind legislation and all of that. And I think that is something that everybody needs to pay attention, not in just Minnesota, but in other places in Chicago, Illinois, you know, even the 5 states down south that you see that are trying to overturn slavery. So it's stuff that we got to be really aware of. And I think that's with you, especially with other families coming on, that's something that you can spotlight. And I would love to hear about even this new legislation that we can be behind, because I know we're in Minnesota, we're pushing for a special session. So if we can help, whatever we can do to help push that, let us know so we can help.
Yes. So we have one of the, or two of the main, or three of the main legislation bills that I literally lived in the Capitol last legislation session. Actually, the last 3 since George Floyd was killed, I've been on the phone with Governor Tim Walz. I just was on the phone with them on this past Friday. I've been on the phone with Attorney General, or in meetings with the governor. I've been in meetings with the head of the Senate. At that time, it was Paul Gazelka. So the governor had me come over to the Capitol with and have a meeting with Paul Gazelka. I showed him the pictures of how Justin's body was found, dismantled and dangling from the bobcat, and just how brutalized he was. Tears came to his eyes. And shortly after that, I noticed that he stepped down from being the head of the Senate after that meeting. And it's crazy to me, because once I really get a chance to sit down and talk to people when they see how Justin was found, people, it's so crazy how you see people move after that. But I literally, for these last 3 legislation sessions since George Floyd's murder, I've met a lot with the Speaker of the House, Melissa Hortman, literally legislators after legislators. So one bill that I had, John McCollin with Minnesota Justice Coalition wrote, so I would have meetings and I still do, since before George Floyd was killed. I have meetings, support group meetings every single week to this day with impacted families. So we have all of the impacted families that you know about, like Dante Wright's and Amir Locke's family, Philando's family, Jamar, the ones you've heard of, and then Kobe Heisler, Teklay's family, a bunch of the families you've heard of, but we also have more families that you've never heard of in our weekly meetings as well. We were meeting when George Floyd got killed, we were meeting in person, and now we do more over Zoom, but we still have our times where we meet in person as well. For these support group meetings, but John McCollin would come to every single meeting, listen to our stories, and he wrote bills out of our impacted family stories. And that's how we got at the statute of limitation for wrongful death, which ended up being named after Justin. We got the Kobe Heisler's bill that John McCollin wrote, and that's because that's to release the video footage to the camera, to the family within 24 to 48 hours, because here we are, we got families 2-3 years, or even like me, 12 years down the line, and still never seen the true unedited footage that doesn't blank out or that's not blurred out. And so families are not knowing the truth of what happened to their loved one. And so I'm going to break this down for you. I'm trying to go as fast as I can because I know as far as time. But let's talk about the statute of limitation for wrongful death bill and why that was written. So within Justin's situation and many other families, so this piece of legislation was not just written out of Justin's story, but numerous amounts of stories. But I'm going to talk about Justin's in particular and why it was named after Justin. So in Justin's case, so this is, imagine this, your loved one is murdered by the police. You're pleading for footage, right? You're begging for footage. You're begging for answers. The police are not responding, things like that, or they claim they're still doing an investigation. While they're doing this quote unquote investigation, aka cover up, the time is ticking, right? And while the time is ticking, your family is mourning. So at that time, families, when you lose a loved one, you're not thinking, oh, I got to do this and that, or after a certain amount of time, I'm not going to be able to file a lawsuit. You know what I mean? Because you're not even thinking about a lawsuit because you're thinking that your child was just found dead in a dumpster, beat all over his body. So now we got families that are mourning. We got, they're holding open the case. They're not releasing things to the family. And then on top of them not releasing to the family, it's also maybe harassment going on. Families are afraid. This is real stuff that is happening. You know what I mean? This is like families are being stalked, harassed. The police are sitting outside their homes. This just didn't happen to Justin. It's numerous families that have reported the exact same thing. So while all of this is going on, the time is ticking, right? Family is mourning. They're devastated. The families are trying to pull everything together, and they're doing their quote unquote investigation, holding the case open, not giving them.
Hey, this is John Tell from the Leon Block. I just wanted to say, breathe for a second. Just breathe. I know I've seen you. I've watched you. I actually met you over a year ago, and I don't ever see you stop. I don't ever see you stop moving. I don't ever see you stop. Take a moment and breathe. I just want you to take a deep breath and breathe for a moment, okay? This is a lot for us to take in. I can't imagine. I can. When you're forced up against a wall and you have nothing else to lose, what do? You hulk the fuck out. You bug the fuck out. You have nothing left to lose but to go ham. And I see you, Queen. I see you. But it's also okay to be vulnerable. You know? It's always a time to be vulnerable. And I just want you to know you're in a safe space. You're in a space where people see you and we're here from you. I've quietly watched you for a while, and I've dreamt of the time where I could have an interview with you and tell you this. I know I'm a powerful person, but you are an inspiration to someone like me, and I can't imagine what you do for other families of stolen lives. And I just want to give you a little bit of inspiration to say, keep going. Please keep going. Do not stop fighting. Continue to be vocal. But remember to take those moments to rest and breathe. You have not stopped talking since you got on here, and we're loving what you're saying. We want to hear this, but what I'm hearing is you just going in. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't stop. And I love that. I just want you to remember to breathe sometimes. You hear me?
Thank you. I appreciate that so much because you're right. As a matter of fact, Katie Wright, I was over there at their baby shower they had tonight for Dante's sister. And I had brought my mom with me. And my mom actually hurt herself. She fell and hurt her leg. And I said, because she travels all around all the time. And I said, it's because I was telling Katie, it's because she doesn't sit down. It's because she doesn't stop. And Katie said to me, just like you're your mother's daughter because you never stop. And it's true. I think, I will tell you guys this. One of the reasons why I fight the way I fight and I go the way I go, because of what was done to me when he was killed. Like I told Katie, the reason I fought for Dante the way that I did and these other families is because I didn't get to do that when Justin was murdered.
Right.
I was 23 and I was scared for my own life.
Yeah.
And I had a baby, and when they sat outside my home, and there was no movement when Justin was murdered. There was no Black Lives Matter. So it was like I was by myself, trying to stand up for him. And so now that there is a movement and there are people that will support and that will get behind our families, and I fought the voice that I feel that higher power gave me. Yes. It was by his grace and mercy, but I fought for this voice. I fought for this platform for our families. It wasn't just freely handed over. It was something that I fought for. And I'm grateful, but sometimes you're right. I do forget to stop, and because I think it's so much built up, right?
Yeah.
And it's not only built up from the hurt of what I know this corrupted system did to my family, but also the hurt that has happened within this movement. The people that we're supposed to be fighting with, And so, but I appreciate those words, because sometimes I get it set in my mind like I'm fighting for us. But lately, I have been taking care of myself, and I've been leaning back a little bit more, trying to take care of my son because he needs me. I'm a mom when all of this is said and done.
Right.
But I'm grateful for all of you guys, and I'm grateful for what you just said, my brother. And I have been taking care of myself a little bit more. But I think it's a lot of built up and just when your eyes are open, right? Yes. And you see this corruption play out, and you know that our families played the ultimate. We paid the ultimate sacrifice when it comes to white supremacy, because all of this is white supremacy. Whether it's the murders on the streets, whether it's the lack of funding in our communities, right, whether it's whoever it is that's dropping these guns off in our communities and dropping these drugs off in our communities, and they won't fund our communities on purpose, and they're letting this happen over off of Broadway, in that gas station and that Mervin's liquor store. They're letting that happen, because if that was Edina, this would not be happening. They would have been stopped it. They would have called a National Guardian and did everything, So we know what's going on, and when your eyes are open and you see it, and then you know in your heart that the people who have lost their loved ones at the hands of the police, we paid the ultimate price of white supremacy, because they took something from us that we can, and even also our men being locked up, something that we give a white boy a slap or, right, probation, they'll lock our black men up for 10 years. So all of that is white supremacy, but we've paid the ultimate of it. And when you see it, I guess it's a build up for me. And I'm like, man. But I appreciate you.
At the end of the day, the word of tonight is self-preservation, because it's not just about, for another day for the movement. It's for yourself too. You are a force. You're a leader, and we don't take those words lightly. We don't say that, but you are, and you in a lot of ways are a pillar. There's so many other mothers and family members that are around you, and I'm just going to remind you again to lean into that too. And you said it, like Katie has said it to you, you know what I mean? Just remember that. But also, on the contrary, keep moving. We're a team. You can always count on us. Anytime you have stuff you want to talk about, you can always reach out to any of us. And you got a platform to speak your truth here, unedited, no bullshit. You know what I mean? We're not mainstream media. We give it to you real, raw, unedited, uncut, because we want the truth to get out there. I just had to interject a little bit because you wasn't breathing. You just kept going. You just kept going. I didn't mean to make us cry or nothing. but I just had to break up the air a little bit and just remind you of your power, Queen, because you really are a force to be reckoned with. And we here at Free Agents of Justice, we definitely got your back, for real, for real.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because it does, I'm still a human being, right? I'm still a person with a heart, so it does get discouraging sometimes, when you're out here and you're fighting and, you're being slandered, you're getting death threats, because I get death threats all the time. And because I'm standing up against evil, right? And I'm actually trying to move. If any of y'all want to help me move, I'm trying to move from where I live right now, because I've been getting these death threats after they grabbed my son up and everything for no reason, and they grabbed up and threw him in the back of the police car with their dogs and everything. A 10-year-old, two 12-year-olds, and then my son, who's 16. So, but it gets discouraging. So I really, more than you even know, my brother, you saying those words tonight, all of those type of words mean the world to me and keep me going, because I do get discouraged sometimes, but I try my best not to there's been so many times where I'm like, I've prayed and I'm like, Lord, should I just stop? Should I just let this go? But then I think about all of the families that I work with and that I'm fighting for and with. And then I'm like, I can't, because I can't. And yeah.
It's just, this is our purpose.
And that's one of the reasons that I honestly, for me, wanted you on here, Tashira, if I'm going to be honest, because I feel like we're stagnant right now, and there's so much going on, and I feel like because your story moved me, especially early in the movement, and you were continually being the reason why I'm out here, especially for Dante, Teco, even just going to Bemidji with Hardell Sherrill. I think I just said that name wrong.
Hardell Sherrill.
Yes, yeah, I always get it tongue twisted. But you've just been so much, and it's like even just with DC, and I just think with like everything that is going on, I think now is just the time to, like, we need to get back out there, because I feel like families like I look on Facebook and I just feel the pain. Like, you read the posts, and there's another family that is, and she's running late. Kimberly Vaughn out of Akron, and her husband, and like the fight that it hasn't been that long as yours, but she's still fighting, and she feels abandoned, and like that nobody really cares anymore. And I see that from a lot of families, not just in Minnesota, but New York, Texas, and I feel like, what can we do to really bring that force back of that what we've seen in 2020? Because it's not just even police brutality anymore. There's so much community violence that is going unchecked, and so much silence. And how do we get that unity back? I want to be that start of it. Like, we're doing something new in Minneapolis coming up new this week with the Healing Circle, going into the hot spots and figuring out what is that trauma? How can we heal each other instead of picking up a gun or picking up a threat? How can we talk it out? How can we hug it out? And I'm hoping that people join in so we can, because a lot of what people don't understand is it's generational. What we're seeing out here is because the father's missing, the father's locked up, education is messed up. People are just trying to survive. So I think we got to get back that unity of everybody cares about each other, because that's what's missing. You look out in these streets today, and that love from 2020 of looking out for each other is gone. So how do we get that back? Because we can get it back.
I believe that too, Chaz. I believe that we can get it back, and I believe that people feeling like they're included, and not excluded. And I think it's a trick of the enemy to believe that, because I believe that even the community violence is still a part of the system, right?
Yes.
The system of oppression. Again, we talk about who's putting the guns and the drugs in our communities. It's poor Black youth. They're not. Where are they getting these guns from? Right. Or they're not going overseas and getting the drugs and bringing them. So who bringing them? You see what I'm saying? And so, but you're right. A lot of our youth and our Black men, our people, are just trying to survive. I literally had a young man say to me over north, because I asked him, I'm like, okay, you guys know people are getting killed at this gas station. Why would you logically know that someone is getting killed and stay here? And he said, ma'am, I'm just trying to survive. I'm just trying to make some money, and that is what makes me think about the lack of funding in our communities, because the study being pumped, the money, a lot of the money goes into the police instead of going into different things. Like, they could tear that rec center, that liquor store down, and they could tear down that or not even tear it down, but shut it down and renovate it and turn that gas station into a rec center, and turn that liquor store into a rehabilitation center. And then so you got those things there, and then fill it up. We need Black and minority men in our communities. You know what I mean? Or we need men in our men and women. But the thing about it is that this is being allowed to happen, and these people are trying to survive. But what we got to do is get over there to that capital. like the people that stand up for community violence as well as police violence, we got to go over there to the Capitol, because I sat in meetings where I know that these people that are controlling the bills, Warren Limmer, and Jeremy Miller. These are the people. These bills are dying in the Senate. When they hit the Senate, that's where. And these are bills that can get funding in our community, but they don't even let the bills get heard. Warren Limmer stops the bills from even being heard because he's the chair of the hearing committee, like to get the bills heard, and they're stopping right there. They're not even being heard or anything, and they're dying at the Senate. So this is why
until I think the most important thing is that's a point that we have to get to. That's maybe like point one. We're at like -5, and so the first part is connection, communication, building those connections so that we can be able to inform people better. Let's sit down and at least have a few people talk about how we're going to reach out to other people around us, and then how are those people going to reach out to one another in an organic way that is not coming off like we're just trying to preach the choir, or we're people that no one can trust, like just literal old school word of mouth, just literally people just talking amongst another in a way that people are actually going to soak it up, because half the time niggas don't care about this shit. It doesn't appeal to them, and what doesn't appeal to them they're not going to be involved in, which is actual crucial change. And historically, I think it was Dora that talked about it one time, the only time that things have really actually changed and gotten done was with a matter of force and violence or some big catastrophe happening, and that's when everyone fucking snaps. And I think we need to do something before we get to that point as best as we can to prepare ourselves for when that, if that does happen. Meaning like building the best bridges that we can. Even if we have disagreements, at least we can keep in check and lock and step and know that people are heading in the same direction. I ain't gotta fuck with you. I ain't gotta fuck with this person or that person. But as long as we know that we headed in the same direction and we're doing something to change this fucking crooked system, that's what matters to me. I think that's at least like -3, and then we can get to -2 in the sense of like, what are we going to actually do? How are these mechanisms going to work? What the mechanisms actually are that are going to affect these lines of communication, again, in an organic way. And then when we get to -1, that's the preparation for the actual the force to be reckoned with. You know what I mean? But I feel like we're such a long way, which is fine. That is perfectly fine. The civil rights era, or however we want to base things off of that era of change, nothing really happened. You think about like 1963 to like 1969 was several years, and a lot of major things happened, right? But then you think about the 70s and all these other changes that happened. It wasn't that far. Those time frames weren't that far apart. By the time you get to the 80s, you have another generation, but to that new generation, it's a whole world away. And the people that were doing things in those times are now old, or seen as old, even though they're at the time where we would think of as thriving. We're in our 30s and 40s. You know what I mean? That's a thriving age, but back then it wasn't. Or at least that's what I'm thinking. But my point is that there's a lot of change that's happening now, but we can't necessarily see it. And I think come next decade, things will be a lot different if we keep doing what we're doing now, but expanding on it. Like really putting our feet down in the ground. Not just putting our boots on the ground, but digging in the fucking soil and planting some seeds. Like it's time to plant some seeds. For real, for real. Like our backs are against the wall and we have no other choice. We really don't.
That is the truth. No, that's the truth, my brother. And when you talk about digging into the soil, that's what makes, like you said, not just boots on the ground, but digging into the soil. Two things that you said that caught my attention when you talk about digging into the soil, that's what makes me think about this legislation. That's digging it because the rules that have allowed this to happen, which is the laws, have to change in order for anything to change. But in order for that to happen, you talked about we have to build connections, because we have to go in there and because we know that where there's numbers, there's power in numbers, right? And so it can't be like one, two, a few of us. We have to go in there in a mass group, because we've even talked about as families about going into that Capitol and doing a sit-in and saying, hey, we're not doing anything until we get a chance to talk to these legislators. Because let me tell you guys something.
Well, we got to think about what unites us all in a sense, because there's all these different groups and all these different factions, and no one wants to fuck with each other. Cool. We ain't got to fuck with each other, but we all want the same end goal here. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing that matters the most. And with the civil rights era, at the end of the day, most black folk wanted nothing to do with it. Most black folk ain't fuck with MLK or Malcolm X. They ain't want nothing to do with that because they ain't want to die. They ain't want to get killed. They ain't want to risk it. They kept to themselves and went through life just making it alive. And that is the same exact thing that is happening now. Nothing has changed in that sense. We've got to do something radically different and stop looking at the civil rights era to a means of change. I'm just going off on a tangent, but you saying the same thing. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
It's all right. I love your passion, my brother. You know what you're talking about. And you are correct, because until we get this gap, because people get mad and they don't want to fuck with each other no more. And once people don't want to fuck with it's all these groups that's fighting for the same thing, but we're all like separate, right? And I really believe in my heart, like you said, until we unify. And so that's where we start, is figuring out, and even if it's just the people on this call, figuring out what am I going to do to be a part of the unifying, because that, I think, is what has to happen first. Is we have to figure out a way, like when George Floyd got killed, it was people that was at odds or whatever, and we still came together. We still was marching together. It was so massive because we seen something that was so wrong that no matter, even if you didn't fuck with that other group or you didn't fuck with them other people, we still was marching down that street together.
The passion for what happened was greater than the differences.
Yes, and I will tell you guys this. You guys probably know I do a lot of rallies for our families and marches and stuff like that. I'm seeing less and less and less people, more and more and more, because we got so many more people that lost their life beyond George Floyd, and the people that hit the mainstream media. We have so many more lives that have been stolen and that deserve for us to stand up for them, and yet these events are getting smaller and smaller. So I guess the root of it, and like you said, digging into the soil, is figuring out how we're going to make connections. Say if we continue to have these Zoom meetings right here and start inviting other organizers to come on with us, and then make these meetings be consistent, that's the way I see it. But you're right. It has to start with the connections and building relationships and building like a coalition. But until we do that, it's going to be really hard, because it's a little bit of us over here doing this, a little bit of us, and then we're saying we don't fuck with each other, so we refuse to work with each other or organize with each other, and we're all fighting for the same thing. And so, yeah, digging into the soil is going to have to start with us coming together.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I was involved with organizing a lot of protests in 2020. And like, it's not really widely known that I was, but I feel like you're right. Like, a lot of the groups don't fuck with each other anymore. So I've been just doing what I can in other ways. And yeah, definitely like talking to local city council, but also, things that we can do together as a community is, phone call or like panels like this. And also I organized in, I think it was like August 2020, a panel on, we talked about systemic racism. But I think if we did something like that, where we talked about these topics and educated the community, and also like figured out things to do, and like, we already know what the problems are, but finding out ways that we could come together to possibly fix some of these issues and call out racist assholes in the community. I think that would be the next step.
And you know what I think? I think a lot of people, I like what you said about educating the community, because a lot of this stuff that's going on, I honestly think like some of this stuff, like people don't know who Warren Limmer is. People don't know that. People don't know that the bills, police accountability bills, and bills that can be passed to get funding in our communities. People don't know that they're going over to the Senate, and then once they get there, they're not even able to even get a hearing, and that's because of this man Warren Limmer. People don't know about this stuff. They don't know a lot of stuff that's happening behind the scenes. You know how you just said, my sister, you said I do a lot of work behind the scenes, just like there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes over on our side of the movement. There's a lot of work being done behind the scenes over on their side too. You see what I'm saying? And so
exactly.
People don't know who's doing what, who's strategically stopping certain shit from moving through. You see what I'm saying? But the people that eyes are open and that has figured it out, it's our job to educate the community. But so I'm thinking probably even having more community conversations where we get people to come out, or even Zoom meetings. I have a Zoom link I'm willing to share, and we have these meetings where we talk about this and we're able to educate the community. Because one thing I always say, these police or these corrupted people, they don't care about what a small group of people know. They don't care about what our family know. I noticed that when they killed Justin, they didn't care about what our family knew, because they were doing it in our faces, like, but they cared about what the big community, the world knew. They care about what the mass group of people knew. That's what they cared about. So educating the community, bringing us together in community meetings over Zoom, in person, and building these relationships. And now we got to strategically figure out, how are we going to build these relationships? Well, we got to have these community meetings and come together to build these relationships, and then we can attack.
You know, there's something that you said earlier that really hit home with me, that is really, I think, is a big misser out here right now. Consistency. Nobody is that, you know, I make sure with like people that I'm working with right now that I contact, at least I send a text every day. Like, hey, you know, any new news? What are we working on today? You know, so I think if it's that consistency of, hey, you know, we got stuff going on today, let's go do it. Like if we're going to the Capitol, or there's a city council meeting on, you know, or hey, there's this, because I know Brooklyn Center coming up, you know, they're, especially with the Kobe and Dante Act, they're going to need people out there, you know what I'm saying? Because I feel like, again, we got stagnant and felt like we got something, that consistency was gone again. Not with everybody, but with a lot of people. You know, you had the same old, you know, 10, 12 people. And then when it came to really time to get, it's always, it feels like it's too late when the crowd's there. You know, it's like we need that crowd now to prevent those type of things from happening, so that we don't have to go to the governor's mansion, or we don't got to go to Hugo and John Thompson's all over the news because they're thinking a black man wants to burn down Hugo, Minnesota, because of the context of his words, because the words move people, and that's what they're scared of. They're not so much scared of they're scared of two things: unity and words. And if we bring that, we can get it. And I think it's consistency, because I've seen it. I've seen that consistency. When we're consistently doing things, actions, you know what I'm saying? We can get it. And I want to get back there. So whatever I can do to help, things like this, especially, I love having Carissa on here. I know she didn't talk much tonight, but I love the fact of her mind, and especially adding you. And I'm sure John Taylor is going to agree with me on this tonight, that anytime that you want to come on, you are more than welcome anytime to, even with Leon Block too, with Sipping with, we have another one that we doing during the weekday with me, Meg, and John Taylor, called Sipping with Tea. So, love, I think that's what it's called. But definitely would love to have you come on anything that we're doing.
Hey, I just want to
love to.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I just want to let you guys know we were having some like technical issues with the stream, so that's part of the reason why I was being quiet. Yeah, so a lot of people can't see it. We're still live; only the mods can see it. But I will get that video and I'll make sure it's out there and I'll post it to as many places as possible. So we are still live technically. I just want to let you guys know that, and also I just want to say, Ed, I've seen you in Minneapolis at so many different protests, and I was always like too scared to come up to you. I'm like, what am I gonna say to this woman? She's so powerful. Like she's such an amazing speaker, and I was absolutely like completely afraid to come up to you. And I just want to say that I think that what you're doing is absolutely amazing, and I just want to know like what can we do to support you? Like all of us here, we want to know what we can do to support you.
Well, first of all, one, I want to tell you thank you, my brother. And I am a human being. I'm a person with a heart and feelings. And I try to love on as many people as I can as much as possible because that's what's needed more now than ever before. So if you see me, come give me a hug or whatever because we in this thing together and we just trying to do this together, and whatever matter of fact, I heard you say to yourself, what am I going to say? Even if you don't say nothing at all, but you just come and give me a hug, but I want to also say that the way that so that you guys can support is one, I want people to know that families supporting families against police violence, it's not about a brand, it's not about that. It's about a group of families that are standing together in solidarity, a group of families that are hurting, that are fighting, that are standing together, that are trying to support each other, that are that have come together, and that's powerful. And um, if you guys can go like Family Supporting Families Against Police Violence page, that way you'll stay updated on whatever events is coming up. And when you see those events, and I always put the flyers. Like this upcoming Tuesday, we have for Linnell Frazier, who was ran over by the Minneapolis Police Department, because they come in our communities and drive at 100 miles an hour, and they crashed into Darnella Frazier, the young lady who recorded George Floyd's murder. They crashed into her uncle and killed him. And so if if you guys go like that page, but also invite your friends on your page to like that page. That way, whenever there's a event going on for the families, people